Okay, so we are now recording. So yeah, just for anyone else that's joined in the last couple of minutes, I'll just reintroduce myself. My name's Roisin. I'm a program manager on the Sutton Trust US program team here at the US UK Fulbright Commission. We're the team that deliver the program. We're also the team that are running the application process and going to be reading all of the applications for this really exciting program as well. And so for this session, we'll be running this for about the next hour, going to be taking you through a bit more of a kind of formal presentation. We'll be joined by a former student who is actually really excitingly studying out at a college in the United States. He'll be telling you a little bit more about his experience applying and actually being on the program. Then we'll give you some tips and tricks for those of you that have started your application as to how to actually submit a successful application. Then we'll have some time to take questions as well. So there is a Q&A function if you want to pop your questions in there. People won't be able to see who submitted questions, so feel free to be as honest as possible if there's something that you're really wanting to know the answer to. Only the team will be able to see those questions, so just to reassure you there on confidentiality, that is the case, but also feel free to use the chat to kind of chat amongst yourselves, sharing maybe any application tips that you have for your peers, and also just kind of letting us know why you're interested in the program, and where you might have heard about it as well. Maybe you might know someone that's actually studying in the United States as well. So yeah, feel free to speak amongst yourselves as well. So moving into the session. So firstly, a little bit more about what the Sutton Trust US program is. We've been running this program for the last 10 years in collaboration with the Sutton Trust, which is a social mobility foundation. So they founded the program, they also fund the program. But the actual program itself is administered by the team at the US UK Fulbright Commission. So Fulbright is a leading provider of unbiased advice for students across the world, but here at the UK Commission for students in the UK wanting to study at all levels in the United States. So this particular program is all focused on undergraduate study, but we also offer a wide range of awards and advising for people that want to study at master's and postgraduate level too. And this particular program, as with a lot of other programs that are offered by the Sutton Trust, are driven by the mission that study in the United States should not be for a select few, and that it should be available to anyone that has the skills, that has the talent, and that has the passion to pursue that education abroad, which is something that is so exciting and that can open so many doors for people. And so in the time that we've been running, we have seen over 400 students enroll at universities across the United States. There's a huge number of universities in the US. Our students are currently represented at 74 of those. 80% of our cohort members are in the first generation of their family to go to university, and have been awarded over $109 million in financial aid from those colleges. So we're having a great impact and hoping to add to that through next year's cohort as well. And so the program itself follows quite a unique structure. So if you are applying and successful on the program, this is kind of a little bit of what you can expect. It's sort of split into two sections, and the first section is what every single participant on the program would be expected to complete, and this is kind of a wide range of programming, which includes residentials, and that culminates in a week-long visit to the United States. So this is a bit of a timeline. So we're currently in the process of applying. You're in that process right now, hopefully. Then you'll find out if you've been successful in late February, early March of next year. Programming itself will kick off in April. The first of these residentials focuses on bringing all of your cohort members together. It will be an opportunity for you to meet like-minded students from across the UK that are also potentially interested in studying abroad, and supporting you with the things that you might need to get there, or just learning a little bit more about it in those early stages. And that includes preparation for the infamous ACT exam, which is one quite important part of one's journey to being admitted to a US university. Programme participants will then take their ACT exam in June. And following that is a residential which will be delivered virtually, in which you'll have the opportunity to kind of reflect on that ACT, and then also look forward to US weeks and thinking about application processes for US colleges and the other things that are required, such as supplemental essays. Following that will be the US weeks in sort of the end of July, early August time. That's the kind of end of the compulsory part of the programme, the programming that every single participant will take part in, and then everyone will have the opportunity to apply to be part of the second part of the programme, in which applying for the United States universities actually takes place. And so that's not a requirement, that's totally optional. The premise of the programme is that the first part is called Explore because it's allowing you to broaden your horizons, consider whether studying abroad might be something that's suitable for you, but by no means something that you have to lock in at that point. And we've had many applicants go on to study in the UK, but they might choose to pursue a year abroad, or whether in the United States or elsewhere. And so the kind of impact on this programme doesn't just look like one thing, it can look like many things for many different people. A really important thing to note as well is that this is a social mobility programme. All costs are covered. So we will cover your travel to residentials, your accommodation, fully funded by the Sutton Trust, food, or all of the events that you'll be involved in are covered. And as part of the programme, not only will you as a student be supported, but we'll also be offering support for parents, for teachers as well, supporting you through the process in both kind of part 1 and part 2. Okay, and so moving ahead into a little bit more detail about all the different parts of the programming that you'll be involved in and what you kind of are offered as a participant on the programme. So firstly, the April residential, which, as I said, kind of focuses on the infamous ACT and how to crack that. You'll be receiving some in-depth support from experts that have been supporting students to successfully complete their ACT for years and years and years. And so you'll have a little bit of an insight into what that type of testing looks like. And you'll also receive an overview of what the US admissions process actually is and how to apply for financial aid, as that is a huge part of the programme. A common misconception is that the Sutton Trust will pay for your education in the United States. That's not quite how the programme works. How it actually works is that you'll work with one of the advisors on our team to put together an application for financial aid, and then students will be awarded that by universities. The universities that we work with have a huge amount of money allotted to supporting those students with need to be able to attend universities regardless of what their context or home situation might be. And so that's a really big part of the programme that you'll be learning a lot more about and thinking about how to kind of get there. And that's what that April residential does focus on. Just notice that it does say that the April residential is virtual, and that is an error. The April residential, we are intending at the moment for it to be running in person. What comes next is to actually sit your ACT, and this is something that you will be doing in the UK, and there are sort of local test centres that you'll be doing doing this at. That's the kind of next part of the programme. Then the June residential will come next, where you'll have some workshops thinking about preparing other aspects of what materials are required for submitting a successful application to US colleges. What then comes next is the US weeks. The last 2 years we have delivered these virtually, but this hasn't prevented any of our students from successfully gaining a place at college in the United States. So just kind of rest assured that that certainly shouldn't hold you back. We are hoping to run this in person. We're sort of taking account of the constantly changing sort of situation with COVID. There is a full FAQ on our website about COVID. So if you haven't familiarised yourself with that already, please do. That should probably answer most of the questions that you might have, but also very happy to take questions that are COVID related towards the end of the session too. But what the US weeks involve in a nutshell are visits to US universities, a stay, like the accommodation that you'll be staying at will be on a college campus, but you'll also be having the opportunity to visit other universities, some of which you may not have heard of, to kind of give you an idea of the huge number of universities that there are in the United States. While there's only around 100 in the UK, there's 4,000 universities in the United States. So just to give you an idea of the huge variety that there are there, and the fact that there's so many that you've probably never heard of that actually could be a great fit for you. And so the US Weeks is kind of focusing around thinking about some of those other options that you might want to consider that you may not have heard of before. We offer the opportunities for students to take part in cultural activities too. In the past, these have included trips to Top of the Rock in New York, to the Met, but also in other parts of the US, visits to malls, visits to see baseball games. So quite a lot involved there, depending on whatever your interest might be. But a big part of this programme is not only having an interest in higher education, but also having an interest in US culture. And so you will absolutely be immersed in that on those US weeks in particular. You'll get to meet admissions officers and hear a little bit more about the admissions process from them, especially what that looks like for international students, and ultimately have loads of fun. This is kind of like the culmination of the programme, and so something that we know and that we hope students have a great time doing. And so once that part of the programme has come to an end, you'll have the option to apply to be part of the programme that will support you with actually submitting applications to US universities. And this will be sort of in about a year's time. Our current cohort 10 students are in the process of doing this currently. Some of them have already been admitted. So if you think about if you're currently in year 12, that this time next year, you could be admitted to a US college. And so that's something that as part of this programme, we could take you there to do that. Okay, and so I've talked a little bit about kind of what steps you need to get to maybe study in the US. You don't need to have a really strong feeling that you want to study there to apply. That's kind of what the programme is all about. But these are some of the reasons why, if you haven't already considered that actually an education at a United States university could be for you. So firstly, quality and reputation. The kind of top universities in the world, many of those are in the United States, and that's for a reason. They have a huge amount of funding. They're very, very highly regarded, and they are a great place to have an education from, somewhere that will set you apart in terms of employers as well. And there's also the flexibility of degrees, which is a benefit that US universities really does have over the UK. as many of you know, if you've been kind of looking into higher education, if that might be something, a road that you're wanting to go down in the UK, the idea that you kind of specialise is quite strong here. The usual sort of shorter degree time of 3 years does mean that you're having to make a bit of a commitment as to what actual discipline you might want to do. And when you're applying for university in the UK, you are applying to a faculty. You're usually applying to a subject, you're applying to the history faculty, or you're maybe considering doing a joint honours. If a joint honours degree is something you're considering, then education in the US absolutely would be something that would work for you, because the idea of studying more than one discipline is very big part of what is called the sort of liberal arts style of education. When you're applying to college in the United States, you're applying to the college, you're not applying to a faculty. You are putting yourself forward as an individual, saying, I have these interests, I'm interested in exploring all of them. And that is absolutely something that they will be embracing and wanting to see. So anybody that is indecisive or has a wide range of interests, this style of education really nourishes that. The availability of funding is also something that, again, it's like it's quite a big misconception. It's usually quite widely known that an education in the US, or an education in any country that is not your own, can be very expensive. And this is true. But with the high level of reputation that many US universities have, they also have a lot of money available to students, to international students, to fund not only the cost of actually the tuition, but of your board, your food. They might be able to offer you a job on campus. And so actually you may end up coming out of your degree in the US with less debt than if you were to attend a university in the UK. And so hopefully that should give you an idea of just the level of opportunity that is on offer if you were to go down this route. The cultural experience obviously is a huge pull factor. The United States is an enormous country with a wide variety of different climates, different types of people. And so you'll be exposed to a wide range of people that you may never have met otherwise, different types of places. And also as part of kind of the experience, you'll have the opportunity to take field trips, take day trips, visit other areas outside of whatever state you might actually be studying in, which is a really sort of unique experience. And finally, employers will be having a US college in your CV will make you stand out in a great way to employers. They'll see things and skills such as your kind of flexibility, openness to a wide range of different subjects, and kind of the ability to take a bit of a risk, to jump into the unknown, to fly across the other side of the world to study, as something that will make you a great employee going ahead as well. Many universities as well, the massive research universities in particular, have great commercial links, so can offer you internship work, or if you're interested in going down the more academic route of actually doing research, that's also something that US universities are really highly regarded for in terms of those opportunities. So I've spoken quite a lot at this point about what this might look like. I'm going to hand over now to someone who actually has experienced this firsthand, just to talk you through a little bit more what this actually looks like if you're a student on the programme. So I'm really excited to introduce you to Yash. Yash is one of our cohort 9 alumni, I suppose, who is currently, he's currently just finished his first term at Northwestern University. And so I'm going to hand over to him now to discuss a little bit more what his experience on the programme was. Ooh, Yash, are you there? Hang on just a second. Oh, here we go. Hello, Yash.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Over to you.
Yeah. So hi everyone. My name is Yash Malkende and I'm from an area in West London called Southall. And I've been lucky enough to join the class of 2025 in the University of Northwestern. And actually, I was in cohort 9. So this time, 2 years ago, I was in your position. So I was applying and looking at the program, thinking, would I make it? Maybe I shouldn't send in my application. And I had like the tiniest inkling I should. So I went through with the process and I was lucky enough to be selected for cohort 9. So since then, I've been through the whole process, albeit virtual due to COVID, but I'm very happy that everything has fallen into place and that I've had a lot of support through the program. So speaking on my experience of why I chose to even apply to the program or study in the US, in terms of the quality and reputation, I think definitely something that pulled me was the fact that there's so much variety in terms of reputable universities. As we may know, the name brand universities like Harvard, Yale, but once you enter the program and you start doing your research, you find that there's so many more. Like Northwestern, I'd never heard of, but I know it's the top 10 and it's one of the leading research universities, which also means I get to participate in opportunities such as research with professors who are actively working on stuff. And this also means that there's an advantage in terms of funding because a lot of universities in the US do have a lot of funding through research, which means that the quality of their teaching is like incomparable because they have all these sorts of professors which are working on active stuff while teaching you and building their courses upon that. For example, this a quarter that I've just had, my professor in history, we were doing a unit on protest and he had just published a book whilst we were in class and it all related to the 1960s and civil rights. And it was really nice to see like the parallels between what he had been working on for 10 years in our class and what he built upon. So that was something that really pulled me. And I think going over there, I realized that this was a really good decision. In terms of flexibility of the degrees, I did biology A-level, maths A-level, and history A-level, which are really like varied A-levels. And I honestly did not have a clue what I wanted to do in terms of whether I should pursue history or biological sciences or even law. And the good thing was the liberal arts aspect drew me in really quickly because even from learning firsthand now with my experience at being at a large university which has a liberal arts degree as a foundation of it, I was able to take classes for example, in French and in humanities, in sociology, and now next quarter I'm going to be taking a class in global health. And I plan to major now in history and global health. And I'm also thinking about possibly transferring within my school to the School of Journalism, which is the #1 in the country at Northwestern. So that's something I'm really excited about, something I wouldn't have considered really, but that's really the beauty of studying in the US. And I think that if you have an inkling that maybe I'm not sure what you want to do, or you're not sure like if like choosing a certain degree and buckling down on something is the right thing for you, take that chance and apply and put yourself out there because you never know what you could discover. And yeah, and one important thing, like I've mentioned, is availability of funding. So the fact that all these universities have lots of donors, lots of famous alumni and people that anonymously donate and through research, they have lots of money to give away. Like, for example, when I got to my university, in terms of financial aid, this is like a tricky situation, but because I had the support from the program and because I went through the steps, I was able to access all that funding. And through that, I was able to experience so many things. Like, for example, they gave me a startup grant to get all the necessary things I need to start up, such as like to start up a bank account, to start saving, to buy like basic necessities and everything. And now every quarter I have enough funding to keep me going and I don't have to take on a debt, which is really good. Yeah, so I think that's one major like draw because as we know, the system in the UK is stressed on student loans and repaying. And I think this is something that's really reassuring about studying in the US. And yeah, so in terms of cultural experiences, I can speak about this from what I've experienced in the last 3 months. It doesn't hit you till you get there, but everybody loves British people. This is something that I've learned. Like every conversation, they'll be like, "Oh, I love your accent. Like, where are you from?" And that's how you make friends. Like for me, I was a very introvert person, and I still am. But once I got to the US, it was suddenly like I have to start being a little bit more confident and just start speaking to people. And naturally, like the way I explained, I'm taking a French class, a sociology class. And in the US, it's all mixed year groups. So I have made friends from like across different year groups, from different backgrounds, studying so many different things. And that's something I don't think I would have experienced here in the UK. I think the UK tends to emphasize more like independent research, whereas like in my classes, I had fun projects to do. I had trips to the city to watch plays with my class. It's like the cultural experience, I feel like it doesn't compare, and I think that's something that's so enriching. Like you're not only getting your degree, but you're also enjoying, and it's 4 years of your life. So I think that's something that's very appealing about studying in the US. Like I'm from the city, like a city area, an urban area, and I moved to a little town called Evanston, which is just outside of Chicago. So I was able to have the best of both worlds and travel into the city. So that's the beauty of studying the US, I think. Yeah. So on the topic of expanding your CV, I think it's just generally a really good conversation starter, regardless of your qualifications, just to say, I've studied in the US. Like I've taken that independent step to move away from home for 4 years and look after myself and also take in these experiences. For example, like I can say now that I've started my degree in Chicago, but I also live in London. So I have the opportunity to come back and also seek employment here as well. And the beauty of it is I'm able to incorporate all these experiences that I wouldn't get here. For example, a lot of universities do offer study abroad, like integrate into the degree. So it's something mandatory and it's something very accessible once you have reached that process. So I think studying the US, it just adds so many different features to my education that I wouldn't be able to have here. And I think for a lot of us in terms of social mobility, these things are generally inaccessible. And I think that's like the beauty of the Sutton Trust program. It works to break down those barriers and to make sure that people like us have that sort of backing. And I think one important thing I want to emphasize is that like you may think like there's an image, like you have to be very rich to go to the US, or you have to be from a very affluent background, or not a lot of people that look like you go there. I think the Science Trust program does a lot to get rid of that stereotype. And I think once I had got there, I had realized like there are a lot of culture shocks because Northwestern is an elite institution. It is a predominantly white institution by its name and its history. So I was literally breaking boundaries by being there. And I think I'd found a community there through like different like mixes and stuff and different like social identity groups and stuff. And one like really good experience that I had was I joined a mentoring program over there in the last few months called the Compass Mentoring Program. And it's specifically for fig leaf students, which means first generation low income. So if you fall into that category, you get to talk and meet up for dinner every week and have a mentor like little pod. And you just get to share your struggles and just talk about your experiences on campus. And you get to relate to people who are from similar but dissimilar backgrounds. So I think there is a place for a lot of like low income students, first gen students on these campuses, and they are excited to bring students who have ideas like this for breaking boundaries. And I think that's one really important thing that by you guys even thinking about studying in the US, you're already taking that first step towards changing the stereotype and making sure you're creating a space for more people. Yeah.
Yash, thank you so much for telling us a little bit more about your experiences so far. there might be an opportunity when we come to the Q&A later, if people have specific questions for you, we might direct them over to you if people want to know a little bit more about that. But for the time being, I'm now going to hand on over to Ellis, who's going to talk us through a little bit more what the actual application process looks like. So over to you, Ellis.
Thank you so much, Rasheen. And thank you to Yash again for all of those points. That was so interesting to hear. And thank you to everyone for joining us. It's great to have you here. My name's Ellis. I am a program assistant on the Sutton Trust US program. And I'm really happy to be here to share some more information about the program with you. It's so amazing to see so many people interested here in the program, and hopefully expanding on what Rasheen has mentioned. In this next section, you'll learn some more about what kind of student we're looking for, our essential criteria, and additional criteria that we're interested in. And at the end of the webinar, we'll cover other information for anyone who may not be eligible, but is still interested in US study. And speaking on those eligibility points, all you students must meet the bullet points that are displayed here. So you must be currently in year 12 in England and Wales, or S5 in Scotland, or year 13 in Northern Ireland. That's probably the biggest criteria that we follow. This does include people who are resitting year 12. Unfortunately, if you are in year 11, you will have to wait until year 12 to apply for the program. If you're in year 13, unfortunately, that window has passed. However, if you are resitting year 12, that's absolutely fine. You must attend or have always attended a state-funded school or college. Essentially, must never have gone to a private school in your entire academic tenure. You must not hold US citizenship. That also includes people who were born in the US but have lived in the moved to the UK, or if you hold a dual US-UK citizenship. Any form of eligibility for US citizenship means that you are not eligible for this program. You must also be from a low or middle income family. Generally, this will mean a household income below £45,000 a year. And last but not least, I think this goes without saying, but you must be interested in US culture and higher education. And that can be expanded on. And I myself, I was a huge fan of 90210 and Gossip Girl. And then when I discovered the liberal arts system in America, which hopefully you will all discover throughout the tenure of this program, if eligible, the beauty of the liberal arts system and how to use that to your advantage. These points may seem very specific and nuanced, but as Rasheen mentioned earlier, the Sutton Trust is a social mobility charity, and we aim to help students that may not have immediate access to a lot of the resources that we do offer at their current school. If I could have the next slide, please, Rasheen. Thank you. So here's just some additional criteria. Just to note, this is not eligibility criteria. This isn't anything that you must have to meet to be potentially admitted to the program. We just are very interested students who also meet these extra criteria. And the more you meet, the more, the stronger your application will be. As Yash pointed out, someone who's the first in their family, a first generation university student, that will help you very well in serving you through your application to the Sutton Trust program. If you have been eligible for free school meals, that will also help as well. If you attend a school or a college with a below average A-level or higher point score, and a school that has a history of a low progression rate into universities, that will also assist you as well when considering your place on the Sutton Trust program. If you also live in a neighborhood with a low rate of progression into university, that combined with your kind of academic institution as well. That can serve you really well. And of course, having amazing GCSEs or S4 qualifications will also be very beneficial in your place on the Sutton Trust program. Again, these aren't mandatory. These are just stuff that we also look for as well. If I have the next slide, please. Thank you. So students can access the application through the Sutton Trust US program website. It's a very simple address. It's us.suttontrust.com if you want to make a note of that. This includes an online application from the student, as well as an online school reference form that kind of culminates the application to the Sutton Trust program. Both of those aspects of the application will be based on the US Common Application, which is the system that that over 900 institutions in America use to have their students apply to American and US universities. And both of these aspects of it must be submitted online through that portal that you'll find on us.suttontrust.com. In doing that, you'll first create a login, and then you'll be taken through a short eligibility check. Now, building on what I said in the previous slides, you will fill out the eligibility form, and if you are eligible, it will then prompt you to start your application. You can save and return to the form at any point. So if you look at it and think, oh gosh, I can't actually complete this in one sitting, don't worry, you can save it as a draft and return, just as long as you submit in full by Sunday the 16th of January 2022. And this submission will only be successful once every section is completed and submitted online all as one. On top of this as well, your school reference form must also be completed and submitted online no later than Wednesday the 19th of January in order to be considered for the program. As I said, those two aspects, the student application and the school reference form together as one, make up the application to the Sutton Trust US program. If I could have the next slide, please, Rasheen. Thank you very much. So the student application form, I'm sure you are all wondering what it will entail. We'll be asking questions about, of course, your academic achievement, but also several points that will hold with more weighting than maybe a system like UCAS would do, which is extracurricular activities, family and financial situation, and your interest in US study as well. Of course, this is only nuanced for international students applying to US universities, just to kind of gauge how well the liberal arts system is suited to you, and kind of like what your passions are as well. Speaking of passions, there are also several short essay questions, as well as a short video interview. Now, don't worry, we call it an interview, but it's more like a video cover letter. There's no one on the other side. It's just a chance for you to record yourself and answer some questions for us. And it helps give the reviewers of the application a good sense of like who you are as a person. It doesn't have to be anything fancy. What matters to us is the way that you answer your questions, and us getting a glimpse of your personality. You could just hold out your phone in front of you and take it, prop your phone up on some books. But what matters to us is seeing your answers and seeing your personality. The application form is quite lengthy, but the Sutton Trust US program staff, we ask these questions to get what's called a holistic view of the student, not only for the student's academic history, but also your interest in the US and the likelihood of being selected and your success in a US style admissions process. The application to the Sutton Trust program mimics the process of applying to US universities, and in doing this, it's sort of subconsciously preparing you for that potential process if selected to be on the program. And because of this, we know that it is very lengthy, but the Sutton Trust US program team does review every application with care, and we want to get to know every student in this process. If I could have the next slide, please. So the school reference form, as I've mentioned earlier, this is an important piece of the application. Not only does it support your application, but it's kind of a double checking method to make sure that you do actually meet the program criteria. Again, I know the criteria does seem very stringent and very specific, but having this school reference form will allow us to kind of like verify that. And it also, it shows that the school's willing to support you. As I said, the application process to the program is very lengthy. So if the school is showing that you're that they're willing to support you in that process, that can only prove good further down the line. And for this school reference form, students will enter their teacher details into the student application form and invite their chosen referee to submit a reference on their behalf. Before completing this section, it's very important that you speak to the teacher that you have in mind to make sure that they are able to complete a reference for them. Do this sooner rather than later. I know that the Christmas period and coming back after New Year can be a very busy time, but it's not going to help you on your application if you speak to them on the 15th of January and say, oh my gosh, I need this school reference form. Please help me. Get your request in. Think about who you want to choose and get that request in sooner rather than later. And just as a note as well, that your referee must be from your current school. So if you've transferred schools for sixth form, please think of someone from your current academic institution, because we ask questions on your current school and the context and student grade predictions, etc. And it unfortunately cannot come from a family friend or a family member or a close friend. It must come from a current member of staff at your current academic institution. After you've filled out the relevant sections on the Sutton Trust application form, your teachers will receive an automatic email with a link to complete that school reference. The reference is kept confidential. And it isn't submitted through the student, it's submitted via the teacher. However, you will get a notification that your teacher has done it and it is being considered as part of your application. Again, just to reiterate, it is very important that we need your application as well as the school reference form to be considered for being part of the Sutton Trust US program. And if you have any further questions about who to choose as a referee or what to do if you want to change your referee, the website us.suttontrust.com has an FAQ page that details those queries that you may have. That's all from me. I will now hand over to my colleague Nancy. I hope this is given some clarity on what the actual application process looks like, and I look forward to answering some questions at the end that you may have. So over to Nancy. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ellis. Good evening, everyone. Thank you again for joining us on this wintry Wednesday evening. It's so lovely to have so many of you here who want to learn more about the programme, and we're excited to speak to you a bit later on and address any questions that you might have. And as you can see on screen now, I'm going to talk to you about application tips. So my name is Nancy and I'm a programme assistant on the Sutton Trust US programme. So if you do end up applying to the programme, which of course we hope you do, alongside Rasheen and Ellis and some of our other colleagues on the team, I will be another one of the team members reading your application. And we absolutely can't wait to read them. It's a part of the year that we really, really love, and we love getting to know you and reading all the information about you. So now that you've heard a little bit more about the programme and about deadlines and how the forms work, I wanted to share some tips with you that are hopefully going to help you in approaching your application. So you'll see some of these on screen, and I'm going to go into them in a little bit more detail. So number one is context. So it's really important that you let us know about extenuating circumstances, and this might include family or financial information. And at the bottom of the family information section, you're going to see a box that will allow you to share any information with us that you were unable to fit into the application. And the more context you can offer us, the better, because as with the whole of your application, we're going to be looking at it holistically. So it's really going to help us build a full picture of you as a person. So any additional information you can give us is going to be helpful. The next point I want to go on to is another really important one, and this is about drafting your essays in Word. We can't express enough how important this is, because it will allow you to get an accurate word count, it will allow you to spell check, and it will allow you to check your grammar and things like that. But also some of the information you're going to be sharing with us may be relevant to you in the future. So it's really useful to have it saved for reference purposes in the future. So make sure you are drafting your essays in Word, and that way as well you can come back to them, edit them, and really craft them exactly as you want them before you share them with us. Number three is the video interview. Obviously, Ellis just touched on that. And as he said, it is more like a cover letter. So it won't be us interviewing you, but it will be a chance for you to share about yourself. And it is a required part of the application. So it helps to tie together your whole application, and it gives us as the reviewers a much better idea of who you are as a person. So as Ellis touched on, it doesn't need to be fancy or nicely edited. You really can just pop your phone up on some books and just sit and talk to us about who you are and the things that are important to you, because what matters the most is your responses to the questions that are asked, and perhaps Yash can touch on this a little bit more later on, but you'll want to read the video instructions and answer each question, and then remember to upload your video to YouTube as unlisted. So unlisted videos are only accessible to people who have the link, which will just be us and you. So hopefully that's reassuring for you to know as well. The next point I wanted to touch on is to do with avoiding cliches. A shorter one here, but we do receive so many applications. We'll talk about this a little bit more later on, but last year it was over 1,000 for a limited number of places on the programme. So we want you to, your application to stand out. So please do focus on telling us about you and your unique experiences, and this will help us again to really get to know you as a person. Finally, most importantly, perhaps this is a bit of a cliche actually, but this one is be yourself. So we want to get to know the real you. So it's really important that that's what you share with us, and don't try and be somebody that you're not. We're looking to accept candidates with a wide range of interests, personalities and experiences. So this is really important. We adopt the US policy of holistic admissions when we review your applications. So this means, as I said earlier, we take into account all aspects of your application. So that's academics, extracurriculars, your personal voice as shown in your essays and your video. So don't be afraid to show this off to us. In some parts of the application, you might feel like you're bragging, but please don't be afraid to showcase your achievements. It's another really important part of your application to us. So we want to know about your activities, your community involvement, your goals, all sorts of things like that. And since we review the applications holistically, please adopt this mindset when you're filling out your application. So tell us about all aspects of your life. Do you go to dance lessons, or do you play badminton? Do you have a part-time job? This is really great for us to learn about as well. Are you involved in an organisation or any volunteering? Do you spend your spare time looking after your siblings or caring for a family member? All of these things are really important for us, and we want to know about all of them. Okay, next slide, please. So some more really important application tips for you to bear in mind here are to save at the end of each section. So you can save at the end of the section and then return to the application. And this means there's going to be no need to rush and submit your application all at once, because we've got 1 month until the application is due now. So we really encourage you after this webinar to start early and then take your time, so you don't have to rush your answers. You can see what's being asked of you, and then you can give some really thoughtful and reflective answers. Which brings me to the next point about submitting before the deadline. Please do not submit at the last minute, because there are many factors that can go wrong if this is something that you do. Our website might be slow from other people submitting, your internet connection might have issues, you know, your computer battery might die. So for your peace of mind, please do submit before the deadline, and then you know it's sent off, we've received it, and then you know you can have that peace of mind. And then, as Ellis touched on earlier, please ask a staff member for a reference well in advance. So although the school reference is due several days after your application, we really recommend approaching a member of staff as early as possible, because the reference will take them a bit of time to complete, which we want you to be respectful of. And also, we'd really like it if they could give some thoughtful answers about who you are as well. So in order to do yourself justice and hopefully receive the reference that you deserve, we'd advise asking them as soon as possible. And then, as I've touched on, save a copy. So once you submit the application, you will not have access to it any longer. So we strongly recommend save a copy of your essays for future reference, and also your family and financial information. And another reason to do this is if you're not accepted onto the programme and decide to continue and apply to US universities anyway, you'll find this information so helpful in the application process because of the similarities in our application review process and the way that US universities do this. So please do make sure you are saving those answers. And then finally, you'll see at the bottom, check it over before you hit submit. So when you hit submit, you won't be able to go back and change any answers. So just make sure you've checked and double checked, so you know that you're sharing all of the correct information with us. Okay, next slide, please. So you'll see on the screen now, this slide is about other ways to learn about US studies. So the Sutton Trust US programme is an amazing opportunity, but there are other ways to learn about US study and lots of brilliant resources out there for you to tap into if you are looking to explore higher education in the US. The Sutton Trust US programme is delivered by us at the Fulbright Commission, and we are the UK's official source of advice for students looking to study in the US. So alongside the Sutton Trust US programme, staff at Fulbright help thousands of students and teachers each year with applications to the US. So these are people who aren't on the programme but are still really interested in US higher education. So if for one reason or another you are not eligible for the programme, or you aren't accepted onto the programme, there will still be ways you can find out more about studying in the US. So we hope this is exciting for many of you to hear. On our website, which is fulbright.org.uk, and that's Fulbright with one L, there are extensive guides about choosing US universities to apply to, how to apply, and also how to fund US higher education if that's the route that you'd like to go down. And then, as well as this, Fulbright holds regular seminars for students and parents to attend, which provide an in-depth look at US admissions. We also organise something called USA College Day each year, when thousands of people from around the UK come to London or come to meet virtually with US universities, and it's the largest US university fair in Europe. So this is always a really exciting thing to be a part of, and it allows you to learn lots more about US higher education and what different universities have to offer. Fulbright advisors also offer advice by phone and email for students and parents, and they're always happy to help if you have any questions. So that's another really important thing to note. The help and advice is still there, whether or not you are on the Sutton Trust US programme. And in short, there's a whole range of opportunities and resources for you to tap into. And so we'd encourage you to look at both the Sutton Trust US programme website, which we will share at the end, but also the Fulbright website, just so you can learn a little bit more about both of those things in more depth. Brilliant. Next slide, please. So we're just about to go on to our Q&A now, but we wanted to share some information from our partner, the Sutton Trust, because as some of you may well know, they also run several UK-based programmes that a few of you might be interested in. So you'll see it on screen now. There are 2 programmes that will be opening their applications in January 2022. And we really encourage you to take a look at these to see if you might be interested in learning more about these UK opportunities. And something to note is that you may apply to both our programme, the Sutton Trust US programme, and also another Sutton Trust programme, such as the UK Summer Schools, but you may only take up a place at one of the programmes. And this is just to ensure that as many students as possible get to benefit from all of these amazing opportunities and these exciting programmes. But do take a look at these programmes after this webinar and see if there's anything on there that might interest you. Okay, next slide, please. Fantastic. So this is a part that we love. I'm going to ask my colleagues and Yash to jump back on video. We'll keep that slide up for you a little bit longer so you can see the information there. And we're going to come to the Q&A. So I know that we've had a lot of questions through, and we're going to try and get through as many as we possibly can before the end of the webinar. Thank you so much to everyone for joining us so far. And bear with me one moment whilst I go through these. I'm going to start with a question, and perhaps Ellis, this is one you might like to answer. And this is, if you can't attend a residential, can someone still apply to the programme?
That's a fantastic question, Nancy. Thank you. Generally, the residentials are considered a mandatory part of the Sutton Trust programme because they are used to help build your skill set in applying for US universities if you feel like that's something that you want to do. We do encourage and expect the students to attend these residentials. However, it won't impede your eligibility in applying for the programme.
Thank you so much, Ellis, for answering that one. I also just wanted to flag, I'm seeing a few questions coming through on the chat about the recording of this webinar, which we'll be sharing over the next few days on our Fulbright YouTube channel. So if anyone needs to hop off now, then please do. Brilliant. Okay, we're also seeing a few questions coming through about the ACT. And a lot of these are around what the ACT is and how it works. And I actually thought this might be a good one to hand over to Yash, if you don't mind speaking about this. That would be brilliant, just to share some of your experiences, what the exam was like and what it included.
Sorry, I was muted. Yeah, so my experience with the ACT, I did take it in June of 2020. And it was in a weird time with the pandemic and everything, but I had quite a good experience with it, and I had to only take it once, which was good. And in the lead up to the ACT experience, I had the April residential as a resource where we went through a lot of content, the structure of it. The program provided like tuition and like weekly, bi-weekly sort of seminars and meetings that we had like as a group to go over content and stuff. So in the lead up to it, it was quite a quick process, but it was something that I had a lot of like help with. And the exam itself is split into like different sections, and it's quite manageable in terms of like multiple choice questions and like reading comprehension. So it's not something like alien that you have to go through. There's just something about like managing the question, knowing the format of the exam, kind of like GCSEs and A-levels. You have to know how the exam works, and then you can master it like that. So my experience was pretty good, and the good thing is that you do have enough time to do the ACT and move on with the other process, or maybe not move on and see if the process is not right for you, but everything happens like at a good enough checkpoint. So, and the staff is there to advise you in terms of your next steps, whether you need to retake or whether your score is like all right for your choices. And obviously a lot of that falls into a later stage of the process, but it's not something that should be too worrying if you're thinking of applying as well. Yeah.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Yash. And as you just touched on at the end there, we don't want anyone to be worried about the ACT. It is just one part of a really exciting program where lots of other great things happen. And so whilst it is part of the program, it's just one small part, and there are lots of other things that you'll get to do if you are accepted onto the program. I've seen a question come through quite a few times, which is regarding how many people are accepted onto the program. So Rasheen, I wondered if you might like to answer this one.
Yep. Yeah, we usually accept up to 150 students onto the program. The number can kind of change year to year, and it's kind of it's not kind of a solid figure. It's kind of depending on the number of and quality of applications we receive, as well as kind of the changing situation with COVID, but that has been a fairly consistent number from year to year. And in terms of our kind of acceptance rate, that usually comes out of around 1,000 applications. So there's about a 10 to 15% acceptance rate for those that apply to this opportunity.
Brilliant, thank you so much, Rasheen. I've seen a question come through a number of times as well regarding how much this programme is to take part in. This is really, really important. The programme is absolutely free. So you won't have to pay for anything to be part of the programme. You'll see this covered on our website. We cover food and transport and accommodation should you be accepted onto the programme. It's really, really important that you know that. And also just to establish something that was touched upon earlier, to note that this is a scholarship program, so it's not that the program funds university placements, but should you decide to go on to apply to the US, the program supports you in seeking out financial aid opportunities. So that's another really important point to note, but you will not be required to pay for anything should you be accepted onto the program. Brilliant. Okay. I saw a question. There's quite a lot coming through, so you'll have to go with me. I saw a question about extracurriculars. I'm happy to touch on this in just a moment, but Yash, I wondered as well if you'd like to share some of the extracurriculars that you did and that you wrote about in your application.
Yeah, so when I applied to the program, I spoke about a lot of my experiences, like academic experiences and like leadership opportunities, such as like being a house captain in my high school and being on student council for the last few years of high school as well. And also like things that I was like passionate about. So I was in like a debate team in high school and things that I did. But later on in the process, I started to think about like a lot of things I wanted to do. And I started a blog at the start of the lockdown, which was March 2020. So since then, I've continued to like post regularly on that blog, and like that's something that was really integral to my application, something that I stressed a lot because it was like a platform where I was able to express my ideas creatively and through articles as well, and like talk on serious topics. So that was something very important, and I took advantage of like the fact that I wasn't able to go to school for many months, and I wasn't able to connect with a lot of my peers. So I kind of took that opportunity in my hand, and that was an extracurricular in itself. Like a lot of people might not think like about like they might think of extracurriculars and think like, oh, I need to be going to like karate like 5 times a week or doing this and that. Like even starting a mini book club, starting a little blog, even like taking care of your siblings, that's something pretty important. That's kind of like almost like a job, really. So extracurriculars can manifest in different ways, and you just need to see what you're doing in your day and what you're working towards, and maybe you can find a gap to fill, especially in the next coming months as well. Hopefully things will open up as well. So yeah, I think that's one really important thing, just to find an opportunity, even if you feel like you haven't got enough strong extracurriculars. Emphasize the things that matter to you. It's more about the quality of them than the quantity of them. Yeah, thank you.
That's such a good note to finish that question on. And just to add a little bit to that, obviously you'll have heard the extracurriculars that Yash did, and as we've touched upon in the presentation, it's really important to us that it's your voice coming across. So just because you hear about, you know, someone's extracurriculars that they did, we want to hear about the things that you are excited and passionate about, and what do you spend your spare time doing. And as Yash noted there, you know, are these family requirements or things you have to do to help out at home or a job that you have. So we want to know about what takes up your time and what your interests are, and the things you're enthusiastic about. So we're really excited to read more about some of those. Okay, I saw a question come up about school years and what year people should be in to apply to the programme. So Ellis, I wondered if you could take that one.
Yes, no problem. Thank you, Nancy. As mentioned in the eligibility criteria, you must be currently in year 12 in England and Wales, year 13 in Northern Ireland, and S5 in Scotland. And just to reiterate as well that this also does include people who are resitting those years. It doesn't matter if you have if you are currently resitting that year, that won't affect your eligibility to apply for the Sutton Trust, because you are currently in that academic year. So again, if you are in year 11, wait till next year. And if you're in year 13 or the equivalent in other parts of the UK, then unfortunately the window has passed for applying to the programme.
Thank you so much for touching on that, Ellis. And as you've just said, obviously the years that students need to be in to apply to the programme. If you have unfortunately missed that window, please still do have a look at the Fulbright website, and you can still learn lots of information that will be really useful there should you choose to apply. Okay. I'd like to come on now to a question which I'm happy to take, and this is regarding references from school. So this was whether students should get one teacher to write it, or if they can get lots of different teachers. And again, as we touched upon earlier, it needs to be a teacher from your current school, partly so they can tell us about school context and how grades are awarded, also so there is someone in your school who's aware of the programme and the process and the things that may be required of the school should you continue on to the programme and apply to study in the US. However, we do understand that some students may have just moved schools, and perhaps you feel that there aren't as many teachers at this school that know you really well as teachers did at your old school. So this is another reason why perhaps we encourage you to ask your teachers earlier, because then you can connect a current teacher with a teacher from your former school if they want to send over a quote or a paragraph or a few lines about you as a student. And again, this will really help us to strengthen your application and to learn more about you. Okay, another question I've seen coming up is about, sorry, they're all flying up the screen, medicine and dentistry. Rasheen, if you'd be happy to answer that one.
Yeah, I can take this one. Medicine, dentistry is a slightly unique situation. So unlike in the UK, where if you're interested in these disciplines, you'll apply for that faculty at a university, these disciplines are pursued through master's and postgraduate study in the United States. And so as such, you can't study medicine or dentistry as a kind of undergraduate course. And so we would say that for students that are dead set on pursuing that, this program isn't going to be the one for you. It's very difficult to kind of study these in the United States. And so I would be directing you to the other Sutton Trust programs at which you can kind of experience life at a UK university, and that will be probably better suited to what you're wanting to do. So for those disciplines, this program might not be the one for you. The exception is that if you are interested in a career in law, that is certainly something that you could do through studying at the United States. You'd have to just do a conversion course when you return to the UK.
Thank you so much, Rasheen. I have seen a question, and it is regarding how strict we are on criteria to do with grades. So obviously you saw Ellis touch upon eligibility criteria earlier, and maybe you saw that your grades differed to these slightly. So Ellis, I wondered if you wanted to take this question.
Yeah, thank you, Nancy. There is no, we don't have any kind of like threshold or benchmark for grades. However, with any kind of application process, it's all based on a relative reviewing scale. So everyone will be kind of, you know, you're essentially competing against other people for a place on the program. And as Rasheen touched on, there's a, you know, a certain percentage rate of acceptance that occurs every year. There is no benchmark to what we require from you, but generally, you know, if we kind of seek to have people who have good or above average GCSE or S4 higher results.
Okay, thank you. And I'll share in the chat in just a moment the eligibility requirements page on our website. The website already also has a really useful FAQs page as well, where you can learn a little bit more about our requirements. And obviously some of them are criteria that are essential, and then some of them are things that we would really like and are really interested in. And as you've probably learned throughout this presentation, it's a really competitive application process. So students with strong grades are going to stand out. So, you know, it is something that we take into consideration as part of a holistic application process. You know, we'll be looking at other things as well, but it is a competitive application process. So you will be slightly at a stronger advantage if you have stronger grades. As we noted earlier, you'll have a note section for explaining any extenuating circumstances. So hopefully this is useful to some of you as well. Great, okay. I saw a question that's disappeared now, but Rasheen, perhaps you want to take this one from someone who said, if they don't get onto the programme, how should they go about applying to study in the US?
This is a great question. We would love to be able to accept everyone onto this program, but resources on the team and the money we have are finite, and so we're not able to do that. But just because you're not accepted onto the program, that doesn't mean that you wouldn't be a fantastic candidate at a US university, and that is by no means a message from us that your journey ends there and that you shouldn't go on ahead and apply. So a couple of things that we can still continue to help you with there. Firstly, if you complete your application and you're unsuccessful, you've already kind of taken the first step, and actually a lot of the information that you'll have given and a lot of the effort that you'll have put into that application will support you with actually submitting a real application to a US university. So definitely use that as your starting point. I'd say then from there, do keep in touch with us at the Fulbright Commission. We have a team of really experienced advisors that you can book in a one-to-one call with about what you're looking for out of an education at in the United States, whether you're wanting to go ahead with studying at undergraduate, or if you think that maybe it's something that you'd like to do down the line, we can help you with that, whether that is through helping you decide what college might be your fit, or if it's about securing funding, which we can, which Fulbright does offer at postgraduate level. So check out our website is what I would advise you, and on there you can find links to resources such as college search engines, which could help you narrow down what colleges it is you might wish to actually attend. And that's something that maybe you could do before you book in a call with one of our advisors to help kind of scope that conversation. And I think the other thing that I would say is a definite must-have if you're wanting to continue with looking into higher education in the United States is to register for USA College Day, which is the largest college fair in Europe, and we run in September. We've been running it for years. We're really experienced at this, and we have a lot of great relationships with a whole host of US universities. That is an event that's open to anybody. We've been running that virtually to quite good success over the last couple of years, and is something that it may be returning to in person this year, but is certainly something that you can register your spot for, and allows you to kind of get your foot in the door, have those conversations with admissions officers, which is another quite unique part of the application process, is that actually having conversations with admissions officers means that they may actually remember you when it comes to reading your application. So attending events such as that are definitely a must do if you are serious about pursuing this route, even if you can't do so through our programme. Just to say that around 9,000 students from the UK are offered places at US universities every year, and only a small percentage of that comes from our programme. So it absolutely is possible, and Fulbright can help you to get there.
Thank you so much for covering that one, Rasheen. I had a question that had come through, which was actually just about the best parts of the programme and what kinds of things happen on the programme. And I know we've covered that a little bit during this presentation, but I wanted to offer this one to Yash, perhaps to speak personally on the bits of the programme that you enjoyed the most, and perhaps the kinds of skills that you gained from being on the programme.
Yeah, so as I said, my experience was very different and it was virtual. So I think the first thing, like going in, I was very nervous. I was like very confused about like how I had even got to this point. And the best thing was speaking to students and like speaking to people like my age, and just knowing that we're not in this alone. Like this is a really cool experience and we get to learn from each other. That was like the best thing, like just breaking those barriers, having those residentials. I think that was a really good like starting point. And it really, I think the main thing that I took away from that residential was like to kind of see myself in a new light, which is really weird. Like it's kind of like a therapeutic process. Like you do a lot of reflection and you start to unpack a lot about what you want, how you want to present yourself, and like what it means to even be a student, like, and balance things out. So I think a lot of the things that I gained out of this process were even like time balance, speaking to people outside your comfort zone, and like as the program like progressed towards like the US weeks and like college fairs, I became very confident in myself and in terms of asking questions on Zoom calls to actual admissions officers, and like being an advocate for myself and what I wanted. And this really helped me. Like I was able to use those skills the year after. So for cohort 10, the current cohort that's applying right now, I was a team leader for the April, June, and US weeks. So I was able to sit like in a different position, albeit from the same room on Zoom, but I was able to see the process and the inner workings, and I was able to balance all of that and do that from home. And literally, I'd experienced that 1 year before, so the confidence that I'd gained in that 1 year, even to the point of applying and everything, it's something that's incomparable, and I can't like underestimate the impact that this program has had on my personality, on my goals, and just like my own self-confidence. Yeah, so that's probably the best part. Yeah, if I had to summarize. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Yash, for such a lovely review. I think we've got time for a couple more questions before we go. One that I've seen come through quite a lot is, if you are not from a lower income family, will that make you disadvantaged in getting a place? As with all aspects of the application, you know, we are looking at it holistically. However, this is social mobility program, and we really want to ensure that places go to students who perhaps wouldn't have some of these opportunities otherwise. So it is something we certainly take into consideration, but you can share more about any extenuating circumstances you want us to know about, but it's important that you know that it is something we do take into consideration, which ties perhaps into another question that came through about private schools and state schools. This is a program for state school students. So unfortunately, if you do go to a private school, even if that is on a scholarship or with a bursary, you still won't be eligible for the program, because we really want to make sure these opportunities go to the students that don't have access to some of the opportunities given through private schools or some of the support that's there. But you would still be able to use the resources from us at Fulbright, so please do take those into consideration as well. Okay, going through some of these questions, there's more coming through. So something I want to note is that if you haven't had a chance to ask your question tonight, we will share our email address in the chat, so please do feel free to drop us an email with your question, and we can come back to that. I wondered actually, Yash, perhaps there's so many questions coming through and only a few minutes left, but I wondered whether you might like to share any words of advice to finish us off for students who've either started an application or are considering applying to the program now.
I think in terms of like practically doing the application, I think you should just get started like whenever you feel like it, like in the next week or so, to get things like done on time and to make sure you're like communicating well with your teachers. And I think just in terms of like the emotional side of like, maybe should I start, should I not? I think if you have an inkling that US education is for you, you want to experience different things, and you think you've got that sort of skill set and you want to develop that skill set, just go for it, because there's no harm in applying and taking that step. And I think putting yourself out there, that's the first thing you can do towards even bettering yourself. So that's one thing. And I think in terms of the application, just the content wise, just the questions can be like, in my experience, the questions that I had were quite like imaginative and quite creative, like looking at things from a different side. Just be honest and like about your experiences, and try and be creative and imaginative about how you like think about things, like how experiences have affected you, things like that. Like, because at the end of the day, you're putting a video interview, you're putting a personal spin on things, which is very not typical for like UCAS statements and other programs. So there's real people reading our applications, such as Nancy as well, and Roshan and Ellis. So I just want to emphasize that this is not like some robotic process. Like, your personality should come across in the application. And yeah, I think just go for it, and there's no harm in applying.